The World Ends With You is an RPG series made by Square Enix. The first game in the series was released in 2007 on the Nintendo DS, inspired by Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. The game was unique in that it was a new gameplay style at the time. Action-packed battles play out on both screens at the same time. With a steep learning curve to this game, and great utilization of the DS's features such as touchscreen, microphone, and filling the game with full of youth Japanese culture with items like Japanese food, clothes, cell phone usage, caused the game to receive critical acclaim. The original was praised for its art style, soundtrack, integration of the setting into the gameplay. While there was some complaints, this game managed to gather a loyal cult following. This is why I got a manga made by the same team who made the Kingdom Hearts manga, an iOS port in 2012 called The World Ends With You Solo Remix, the characters appearing in Traverse Town in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, and in 2018 a definitive version of The World Ends With You, The World Ends With You Final Remix on the Nintendo Switch. The World Ends With You anime, and in 2021, the topic of this video, a sequel, Neo The World Ends With You in 2021 for the PS4, Switch, and PC, as an Epic Games exclusive. Fun fact for you guys watching, I managed to get this game on the same day my PS5 order came in, so this was the first game I got to play on my PS5. This game was co-developed by the team that made the Switch port, Square Enix and I love this game with all my heart, and I admit, it's not perfect. No game is perfect, but it is a perfect sequel. That's what I'm here to talk about. So without further ado, let's get into it. The developers wanted to make a sequel to The World Ends With You for a long time, but they felt like they never had a secure environment to make a realized sequel. The team wanted to make something unique, instead of just completely making the first game again with a new plot. In addition to that, the World Ends With You series was led by the Kingdom Hearts developers who were preoccupied with ending off the Xehanort saga with the Kingdom Hearts 2.8 collection and Kingdom Hearts 3, preventing them from being able to return to The World Ends With You. When Final Remix came out, they started full development on a sequel. Despite this though, a sequel started being conceptualized around the time Solo Remix came out. According to an interview, the main reason the sequel was made was because of the anime. The developers believed that the anime would spark new interest into the series, and it definitely was. As soon as the anime started being announced, I started seeing The World Ends With You on my timeline all the time, and I hadn't even played The World Ends With You at that point. The game was revealed on November 23rd, 2020, in the same way Solo Remix was announced. A 7-day long countdown with an evolving background. It even used the same background music that the original countdown used. When the countdown ended, it showed a Rindo's hand holding a phone with the words Neo over it. The game was called Neo instead of 2v2 because the team wanted to emphasize that new fans could start playing here. I'm sorry, what? No, they can't? Okay. I understand where they're going with this, but no. Please, 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 you should really, really play the first game. Like, we're talking about skipping Kingdom Hearts 2 and just going straight to Kingdom Hearts 3 levels of bad here.
Ven looks just like Roxas. Or is it Roxas looks just like Ven? And now I have to explain all of that to him, which is in itself a crazy long story. And apparently everybody already knows everyone, and this is an insane amount to get memorized.
When the game eventually started development, the team decided they were going to try evolve the gameplay. As I stated earlier, the team wanted not to just make the same game again. The team decided the best way to do this would be to evolve the gameplay. The first way they did this was to make the world go from 2D to 3D. This made development both easier and harder in multiple areas. With areas now being 3D, they could add much more detail to expand the areas in Neo 2's overworld. They could also add new areas like Takashita Street. With the inclusion of a 3D overworld, they can now create a sense of how crowded each of their places were. When it came to developing the battle system, this also got revisions. At some point in development to try and replicate the touchscreens in the original, they used gyro controls. The player would aim and attack in 3D areas using the PS4 DualShock controllers or the Switch's Joy-Cons. This was dropped in favor for a simpler battle system. This was to create something not inspired by the original. Another reason though was because even the developers who made the battle system had trouble getting used to the controls. This is where we got the current battle system, but I'll talk about that more when we get into gameplay. Then it came to the story and characters, and the team felt like with the 14-year gap in real life between both the games, it would be unnatural to make the story revolve around the 5 main characters from the first game and have them show up as if nothing changed at all. This is why for this game, a new set of characters was created, and the story revolved around them, with characters from the first game showing up just to make it that much better. As I stated at the beginning of this video, Neo The World Ends With You is a JRPG. Along with its predecessor, they're both very unique. Throughout points in the story, our cast will be given missions by the Reapers as part of the Reapers game. How you actually complete these missions is by progressing the story. So how do you actually progress the story? It's the same as the last game. You get to the place where the boss of that day is, beat it, and then you move on to the next. Sounds pretty simple, right? You see, throughout the day, Reapers will put up walls to block your progress. To get past these walls, you need to beat a submission. These submissions can range from fight a certain type of enemy called a noise, or a certain type of clothing, cover up murder, you know, the usual. So why don't you only beat the missions you need to do to get through the story? Well, there's nothing stopping you from doing that, but you'll be putting yourself at a great disadvantage into combat. Around Shibuya, you'll find stores. In stores, you can buy both clothes and pins. Pins are pretty self-explanatory. They're how your character attack, and depending on what pin you have on, their attack changes. Clothes, however, are very important. You see, when you level up in The World Ends With You, the only thing that levels up is your HP. It's been the same in both the original and in this new sequel. So how do you level up your attack and defense? Well, that's where the clothes come in. Clothes will have a set number of stats attached to them, and that's how much your stats will increase by. But you can't just buy the amount of clothes that give you the best stats. I mean, you can do, but there's a better way to do it. Each piece of clothing has a type of ability attached to it. These abilities will be clothes of a certain brand will do better, certain characters getting an extra stat boost, etc. But here's the catch. To get that stat boost, the character has to have a certain style figure that is the same that the ability is attached to. If you don't have a style figure the same of or higher than the figure on the clothes, you will not be able to trigger the ability and you'll only get the stats. So how do I increase my style? Well, that's where the other type of story in Shibuya comes into play. If you don't enter a shop, you'll enter restaurants, where you'll be able to, what do you know, order food. Food is able to boost your attack, defense, and or style. There's more to it than that though. Each character reacts differently to different types of food. You can tell how much they like or dislike something by checking their sprite when you place the food next to them. If you give a character the food they love, they might get what's known as a tasty bonus. Tasty bonus is extra stats on top of what was already included in eating the food normally. But you can't just feed Rindo till he becomes an actual Rin Dragon and just rises to the sky like a hot air balloon. There's this battery in the top right hand of the screen. This battery is how full your party members are. You need to have space in the battery to actually eat. Now you can overfill this battery if you want, but if you overfill the battery, you have to completely deplete it by battling before you can eat again, so it's better to just not completely overfill your battery. The only conditions to eating food is to have space in the battery, unless you're planning to overfill it, which you shouldn't, or having the money in your wallet. I like this system so much better than the one in the original The World Ends With You. In the original The World Ends With You, they kinda had something similar to the battery system, except this one didn't deplete with battling. It didn't reset until the next real life day. You had to wait until tomorrow before you could eat stuff after your characters were filled. You had to wait until the next day in real life before you could eat anymore, which is just such a waste of time. It's tackled so much more better in Neo The World Ends With You because there isn't a hard cap on how much you can eat, and if you do end up overeating, you can also reset it by battling. Neo The World Ends With You also has side quests. Since in the Reapers game you can interact with Shibuya without being seen, the developers felt like it would be a good idea to give you side quests where you solve the people of Shibuya's problems. Side quests can range from Nagi's dive into the mind ability, Fret's remind ability, giving the right dialogue response to someone, and so much more than what I just listed. When you complete a side quest, you also get friendship points. These friendship points can be used on a giant friendship network. You can use friendship points to buy abilities like being able to jump over railings, getting more time for Nagi's dive into the mind, getting more EXP, getting more money, so on and so forth. You also get friendship points for doing Nagi's dive into the mind. In fact, Nagi's dive into the mind is actually like 70% of the side quests in this game. Oh yeah, you also get friendship points once you actually beat the day's mission, but it feels more like a yay you did it than you actually completed something.
Yeah, I feel like we deserve better.
And that's why you should go out of your way when you're exploring Shibuya. Because if you don't, you're cutting yourself off from side quests, food, and stores you can take advantage of. If you really want to save time and just do all the side missions, the menu tells you where all the missions are. It's time to talk about the battle system because that's the most prominent part of any RPG. Neo The World Ends With You goes a completely different way than its predecessor. While I don't hate the original battle system, it had its flaws, like, it was definitely made with handheld in mind. It was also definitely made with co-op while you're playing in docked in mind. When you're playing docked, you had to use motion controls, which you can already tell how bad that went. You can't put 2 pins of Angel, Reaper, or A rank in the same deck. You also can't put 2 pins that activate the same way in the same deck. Unless you're playing in handheld or in co-op like this doofus, you're going to be at a complete disadvantage against the noise. So that's why Neo The World Ends With You turns this battle system completely on its head and does it way better. In Neo The World Ends With You, you just whip a pin on a character and then you're good to go from there. Dodging is so much more simpler in this game than in the original The World Ends With You. In the original The World Ends With You, you had to move Neku by either using your finger or the aforementioned motion controls, depending on if you're playing it in handheld or docked, and I bet you can tell how this went. In Neo The World Ends With You, it's just as simple as pressing the X button. If you missed a certain side quest or an optional dive into the mind in a certain day, you can replay it really easily. Neo The World Ends With You gives you the ability to replay days from as early as day 4, which you don't get in the original until you actually beat the whole main story. As well as that, Neo makes it so much more convenient. If you go back to replay a day, you can resume the current day you were doing exactly where you left off. It makes it so much more convenient to get all the friendship points you need because there are only just enough to completely fill out your friendship network. So before I start this section, I'll be reaching some spoilers, and I have to stress, if you have not, please go play this game. This story is amazing, and don't think if you have any doubts about playing The World Ends With You that it won't bother you to hear spoilers, because I used to have that mindset, and so many times it's bitten me in the butt before. I will be talking about more non-spoiler stuff after the story, so here's a timestamp on screen to jump to more non-spoiler stuff. I'll give you a few seconds to click ahead. Okay, on to the spoilers. The game starts for our protagonist, Rindo Kanade, meeting his friend Tosai Furesawa by 104. He bought 2 limited edition pins for him and Rindo. Little did he know that these pins would drag them both into the UG, an alternate version of Shibuya where only people who can see them are the ones in the UG. After being registered for Reaper's game by a Reaper, Shoka Sakurane, they are given their player pins and start to complete the missions. During their first mission they are ambushed by the noise, but are saved by none other than Shomen Amimoto, one of the antagonists from the first game and a fan favourite. He joins the 2 boys for reasons unbeknownst to them. They complete 2 more missions with Rindo and Fred slowly learning more about the game, with Min Amimoto showing up to help them fight. This is why he doesn't show up in the majority of the cutscenes. The next day you meet Kanan Tachibana, leader of another team, the Varia Beauties, a team I can only describe by the yassification of people. On day 3 they try to recruit a new girl to the team by trying to get her a pin she wants. This is when Rindo awakens his powers to travel through time. You'll need to do this often to change how the future plays out. After fucking with the space-time continuum and essentially telling Palkia to go fuck himself, they acquire their new pin and team member Nagi. Also, she sims for Min Amimoto because he looks like a character from a game she likes. Throughout the week you meet the other 3 teams in the Reaper's game. The Ruinbringers, the team in first place, who seem to be a 3-person team. Motoi, who's the leader of the Pure Hearts but a weeaboo for Europe. And another fact about him, he runs one of those self-motivation Instagram pages that Rindo looks up to. These messages are something Rindo relates to deeply, and they taught him personal morals, making Rindo seriously indebted to Motoi. If this doesn't make sense to you, keep in mind Rindo's a modern day teenager. He spends all day on his phone. So like everyone else, he finds different things important than we do. While it might be stupid to us, it isn't to him. There's also the Deep River Society, who despite their name are actually the most shallow team in the game. Their only character trait is that they really fucking like rivers. Now I gotta ask, which river's your favorite?
Indeed.
Maybe the Sakao River? I mean, those curves. So that's your type, huh? I'm more into the Tone River guy myself. Oh, you like older with a little history. I can get behind that flow. Okay, maybe a bit too much. Missions continue as normal until the final day when the players are made to go fight Suzukichi, a team member of the Ruinbringers, which is the team in first place once again. The fight starts to go off the rails and they're saved by a mysterious figure named Neku. He runs off before the Game Master appears. Since Neku isn't part of the Wicked Twisters, which is the team Rindo, Fred, Nagi, and Min Amimoto are on, the points for fighting Suzukichi couldn't be awarded. With that, the Ruinbringers wing again and asks for the game to be played a second time. Between the end of that day and the start of next week, Min Amimoto leaves the team as he no longer has any need for his former teammates, so it's just Rindo, Fred, and Nagi against everyone else. At the end of the week, the team in last place is erased from existence for good. In week 1, that was the Deep River Society, who once again was the least developed team, so we're really not losing too much. But this is why everyone's fighting so hard, because if they lose, they die. Week 2 begins with that revelation hitting the team. Nagi's pessimistic about their possible performance now that Minamimoto's gone, and Rindo's pessimistic about the entire situation they found themselves in, while Fred's trying to be the optimist the team needs. The trio realizes they need more than the three of them to win, and decide to recruit that Neku character from the day before, but nobody knows who Neku is or where they've seen him for that matter. At the end of this day, you meet Tsumugi, who is another Runebringer who was in the final remix to help promote this game. The next day, the mission is to locate and defeat Neku. This requires Rindo to go around town and time, you know, as you do, to try and fail to locate him before another team kills him for points. After going back in time a lot, and I mean a lot, eventually through the process of elimination you find him and save him from Tsumugi just before she takes him out. After a killer boss fight against Mr. Mew, shut up, this boss fight rules, you learn that this isn't Neku, it's actually Beat, another character from the first game, who was one of Neku's partners. This game does hint its beast by showing this man has blonde hair in week 1, when Neku actually has an orangey gingery hair, but most people like me included just shrug it off. After Beat is officially made a player, he accepts the team's request to join. You complete missions through week 2, slowly learning with the help of Kanade and Shoka that the Runebringers are always going to win because the game is more or less rigged against them. Kanade and her team join forces with Rindo, and Shoka's sending Rindo's hints behind the Reaper's back. On day 6, Shoka's made a target and Motoi gets to her first. You go back in time to try and save him, but something sounds off in their conversation, so you try to go back in time even further. The more you go back, the more you learn Motoi isn't exactly who he seems. It eventually comes out that he is just a troll. He steals other people's content and plagiarizes them for himself. This hurts Rindo, knowing that his hero is nothing more than just a blatant plagiarizer. He steals everyone else's posts and just takes credit for the things he never even wrote. He's generally just a waste of space. With the team's help, they fight Motoi and this sends his team into last place. On day 7, Shoka is expelled from the Reapers because Motoi exposed her as someone helping the Wicked Tristers. After some self-reflection, Rindo lets Shoka join the team and the quartet are now a quantet, if that's even a real word. They make their way to fight the Ruinbringers, and the big twist of the day we learn after fighting Tsumugi is that she and all the Ruinbringers are actually Reapers. This is why the game is always rigged in the Ruinbringers' favor, because they are Reapers. The Game Master announces that he is actually the leader of the Ruinbringers, and Shoka was always just a double agent just to send back info to them. The Reapers are about to welcome Shoka back into their ranks, and Rindo just pops off telling her to basically get lost.
You may rejoin the Reapers.
Shoki, no!
Shoka, come back to us.
Well, what are you waiting for? Just go! Not like you were really with us anyway!
After having bonded with Rindo for the few moments they were teammates, Shoka doesn't actually want to destroy Shibuya, and actually joins the team for good. With the team surrounded though, they are forced to play a third week. Motoi is erased for being the team in last place, and your team, as well as the Varia Beauties, are sent into another week against the Reapers. Week 3 begins with another announcement from Shiba announcing that this week it is you against the Reapers and a brand new type of noise, the Plague Noise. This noise can only be defeated when exposed with a backlight, and you spend the first day of this week figuring that out. The rest of the week is picking off the Reapers one by one. Day 2 is against Ayano, Shoka's closest friend. She taught her everything she needs to know about Reapering when she joined the Reapers. Day 3, the Plague Noise starts to infect players and people in the RG. This results in what's known as Shibuya Syndrome. You start to slowly lose your memory, and then it hops from one host to another. This results in Kanade's death. Day 4, you're made believe you're going to go up against Kubo, then Izuki and Karya like in the first game, and after I recovered from my panic attack because I was a really hard boss. Damn, they're a fuck ton stronger now. Beats, you need to actually work. Yeah, I did barely anything to You learn it's actually Minamimoto who finally showed up again. He kills Kubo and then comes after you. Since he's one of the strongest Reapers, you're not able to actually finish him off even when you win. This leaves Speech to go to distract him while the others run away. But since Minamimoto is actually so strong, It's still too much for Beast and almost kills him, but then...
Who's that?
Got me good, yo.
You okay?
No way.
Let me help you.
Neku comes back from the undead. After a reunion of the two boyfriends, Neku joins the party. Day 5, past enemies come back and you take over the noise possessing them. You see Motoi, Ayano, and Kanon again. It would be cool to actually fight these characters as bosses, but you only fight the plague noise infecting them, which is a bit of a letdown. On day 5, you also meet Coco and the destroyed Mr. Mew and learn Tsumugi is trapped inside it. The only way to get her out is to meet Shiki, the original creator of Mr. Mew and character from the first game. Day 6 is the final fight against Suzukichi. While he does want to take out Shiba to bring him back to the way he was before the Reapers game started because he's gone mad with power, he isn't strong enough to stop Shiba himself. Then, the grand finale of Day 7. You fight Shiba in one of the most awesome boss fights in this game, but even then you're not done. Kubo is still alive, surviving that attack from Minamimoto, and shows up again. He was actually controlling everything behind the scenes the whole time. He's actually on a higher plane of existence than even the Reapers. He summons a murder of crow noise. We've been seeing these crow noise throughout the game. They are from the people of Shibuya in the timelines Rindo discards when he changes time. So essentially, every time Rindo goes back in time, he's made this noise dozens of times stronger, and that is such a cool twist in my opinion. Because you're made to go back in time so many times in this game, so you'll be wondering how many times stronger you've actually made this noise. You go back in time to try and stop him for good, but you fail again, and this time Kubo shoots Rindo's pin so he can't go back in time again. When it looks like it's the end for Rindo, a beam of light comes down from the clouds and erases Kubo from existence. Rindo ends up back in the RG, but here's the twist, it's only Rindo. Since none of his friends survived the fight against Kubo, none of them are back alive. Rindo is depressed because none of his friends are alive anymore. A man named Haz shows up and asks to be shown around Shibuya, not knowing what is so good about the city. While on this tour, Rindo learns it's all the people you meet. Haz is also on another plane of existence, and he offers to send Rindo back in time to the beginning of the final day once again. The only difference is, Kubo won't be there this time because Haz exorcised him. And by exorcise, he means erased from ever existing in any timeline. He accepts the offer to go back in time, but none of the team remember Kubo. Knowing Rindo wouldn't lie about this, they trust him and make a plan to stop the noise. Rhyme, Beat's sister, hacked her way into the Reaper's network servers to contact people in the UG, because after the first game she took up hacking. Rhyme made plans to meet Kaie, another Reaper we've met, to plan to stop the noise, but Rhyme needs an escort, so we ask Coco, but Coco can't take her, because if Coco takes her, she can't take Tsumugi in the trapped Mr. Mew to beat Shiki so that she can be fixed. So we ask Izuki, but if we ask Izuki, that leaves Karya on his own to fight the noise, so we need to make a truce with Minamimoto to work with Karya to stop the noise so that Izuki can sort Rhyme, and that Coco can take Mr. Mew to be fixed by Shiki. Then we need to recruit Hishima, Shiba's old best friend we met earlier in the week, and now if we revive Tsumugi we can convince Shiba to help us fight the noise, and then all of us together can fight the noise. But even then, we need to use Neku's ability to read people's souls, Nagi's ability to dive into people's mind, and Fret's ability to remind people of what life was like before Shibuya Syndrome, so that we can fix the world and have the whole of Shibuya want to be saved. Then what occurs is the best scene I've ever seen in anything since Avengers Endgame. Roll the clip.
Don't be.
Said he'll be fine, yo.
Tell him he'd better be.
Here we go. Focus.
Well, look at that. People are finally waking up around here.
Welcome back, girl. Kinda feels like the fog's starting to lift for me, too.
Oh, you've still got a long ways to go. Try a little harder, will ya?
Aye. Never thought I'd say this. But I think it's time for me to get to work.
Can somebody explain how I got roped into this frickin' mess? This is like literally the worst. I know irresistibly adorable, but can't you all just buzz off?
Ha!
Minimoto!
07734.
Ew. Hey! Don't just spout off numbers and walk away, you jerk!
Tell her I'm fine.
Says to tell you he's good.
Well, we haven't got much time left.
Need a hand there, partner?
Josh? Pris kid?
No one invited me to this little reunion, so I invited myself. I must say, this is quite the impressive scheme you've devised.
'Tis ceaseless. Thoughts stream into my head, one after the other, fair and foul alike.
I feel fine.
Glad to be of service. I rechanneled that depressive energy outward.
Emotional redirection.
In a sense.
We'll keep the noise at bay. You just do what you gotta do.
Understood. I shall do my utmost.
Open thy minds unto me, and pardon the intrusion!
Threat! Roger that, buddy!
And then we all fight the giant Phoenix boss at the end of the game, and then everyone goes back to the RG, even Shoka with help from Joshua. So yeah, week 3's a roller coaster. But that is the condensed version, and even then, I didn't tell you everything. So before you get into the same question I got in the original tweet video, that no, this is not the whole Neo The World Ends With You story. There is a post game, and I left stuff out of the main story to give you guys incentive to go play it yourself. That's not even all I love about Neo 2E, there's other stuff that I couldn't really make a whole section on, so I'm going to talk about here. The soundtrack is a solid, like, 9.9 out of 10, and the only reason I didn't give it a 10 is because there's 1 or 2 songs on the soundtrack that I dislike. But even then, the songs I do like, I listen to daily on repeat. It is so good, guys. Seriously, give the soundtrack of both this and the original The World Ends With You, because I give it the same rating. Just give it a listen. Just give it a listen. You won't regret it. I love the risk and reward system in the battle system. You can choose what level you're on at any time. The lower your level is, the higher the drop rate is, but also as a consequence, the lower your max HP is. So essentially, if you want the good stuff, you gotta go put yourself in danger a little bit. The voice cast give this game their absolute best effort, and it shows. Nobody in this game has a bad performance. Even the original voice actors who came back from the original World Ends With You, which didn't have that much voice acting due to being a DS game. The graphics look absolutely amazing. It definitely takes advantage of the PS4 and PC hardware, as well as being on the Switch, instead of just being a DS game. The characters are all amazing. Everyone gets character development because unlike the first game, the story focuses on the team instead of just Neku. I also love this game because it's a true finale to everything from both games. This game goes above and beyond its predecessor in every single way. Gameplay is better, story is better, characters are more developed, literally everything in this game got improved, and that is why I think Neo The World Ends With You is a perfect sequel. Thank you guys for coming and clicking on this video. It means a lot to me because I put so much work into this video and I care about Neo 2E so much. It deserves all the work that I put into this. Thank you guys for coming and checking me out. Seriously, it means so much to me. You guys have no idea how much it means to me to come and watch my videos. So I would appreciate if you do your best to share this around, because I want as much people to see this with the amount of work I put into this, and also if you could go and share around some of my older videos as well. It would really mean so much to me. And definitely leave a comment and a like as well, because that helps more than you can imagine. So please do everything you can to share this around. It would really mean a lot to me. I want to get as big on the platform as I can before the summer ends, so that's going to start now. But thank you guys so much for coming and checking me out. You know what to do if you liked this video. I will see you all next time. Goodbye.
I feel a bit older.